Hi, hello, and welcome back to another Skyblock video. My name is ohSauce, and today we are going to be talking about how to get more EHP or health and defense in Skyblock. Now, EHP and health and defense are important because, well, I mean, if you don't have enough, then you will get one-tapped by everything and won't be able to do any damage. Even if you can theoretically do a lot of damage, you can't do any damage if you're dead. So, first you gotta survive, and that's what this guide is about. If you are looking to increase your damage, then I have a guide on that as well. Check it out in the description or in the top right hand corner. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, now for those that don't know, EHP, which is like your total effective health, because that's what it's called, is your HP times your defense divided by 100 plus 1. And you might notice that there's a multiplication sign there, and that basically means that it stacks multiplicatively, although not totally, because it's not just that. It's your defense it's more of a defense modifier that changes how much EHP you have. So what's really good is to have about the same defense and health points, so that will probably maximize your EHP, but you could just use this equation to figure out specifically how much of each you should have for whatever build you have. Now let's talk about how to get HP and defense respectively. First off, we have Fairy Souls. Now, Fairy Souls are perhaps one of the most important things to do in this game. Fairy Souls, like, increase your health and defense by a lot. Like, you can see right now that with me not wearing anything, and I don't really have that much defense from other things as well, although the mining skill and fishing skill and other things like that will give me a little bit more. It's basically still the same. Let's look at effective health here. We have 2,000 effective health. Now, if we were to go onto another profile, so here's just some random profile that I'm on right now, and if we were to look at our effective health now, we can see that it is 111. So that is a massive difference right there. That's like 20 times difference. Please get your Fairy Souls. It's the most important thing in this case when you're outside of dungeons. Alright, back to the main and once you have your Fairy Souls, we can move on to the next part. So the next most important thing is probably gonna be different types of armor. Because armor, you know, its main purpose is to give you health for the most. Now, here's just a couple slightly that are in the meta in some way when it comes to health and defense. Mastiff, Goldor is meta as a budget. Necron or Storm Armor, Superior Armor, Perfect T12, Necrolord, and Strong. They all have their place in this game, and that is because that they have at least some EHP. Now, some of these sets are not specifically known for having EHP, like Strong or Necron or Storm, but they do have it nonetheless, or else they wouldn't be a good set to have. So you're gonna want to get yourself a good armor set. Now, depending on what stage of the game you're in, that's gonna be different. I mean, like, I would say that Strong is just a good all-around mid-game set, and Mushroom is probably gonna be your best bet in terms of early game sets. And for late game, you're probably gonna have some Perfect T12, although you really only need Strong for everything in the main world, and then in dungeons, you're gonna have stuff like Perfect T12 and Necrolord, and then for nearing the end game, you're gonna have like Necron or Storm Armor. And that's it for base armor, but then there's stuff you can add to the armor. So next up we have Armor Reforges. There's two main EHP Armor Reforges, one for defense and one for health, and there's two boosted forms that you can find in dungeons that are better. So first of all, we have Titanic / Giant. Unless you're super poor, I would not go for Titanic because it's just pretty bad. Titanic does work well on Mushroom Armor though. Now, the difference between Titanic and Giant is absolutely massive, whereas the difference between the defense Reforges, Reinforced, and Perfect is, well, less massive. So if you are that poor and it's not mushroom armor, then just get reinforced and wait for giant until you have more money. And perfect is also not that good, so the two that I would actually use are reinforced and giant, not titanic or perfect. Because perfect is, I mean, it's just a little bit better than reinforced and it costs way too much. And then there's also, depending on what your other stats are for the armor that you have, you're going to want to try and even out both your health and defense, so using armor reforges to do that is a great idea. Then there's also hot potato booking and fuming potato booking your armor. It might not look like much in dungeons, but it is buffed by the dungeon modifiers, so it can get quite helpful. I remember that hot potato booking my Shadow Assassin armor was a thing that originally helped me survive floor 5. Then as you can see on armor, there's also stuff like enchantments. So on my storm set here, you can see that everything has growth 5, prot 5. Now there are people that go for growth 6, prot 6, growth 7, prot 7. I am not that stupid because it's totally not worth it. Like, growth 5, prot 5 is all you need unless you're a fraction who is forced to upgrade their armor to higher levels. It's like an additional 2 defense. It's just totally not worth it, alright. But growth 5 and prot 5 do help a lot. And then there's also ultimate enchants. So the two EHP enchants, ultimate enchants, are Last Stand and Legion. Legion buffs everything, so it's technically also an EHP reforge, and Last Stand is kind of just bad. Honestly, I would not recommend an EHP ultimate reforge, ultimate enchantment, unless you were really desperate to get more EHP. I would go for something like Wisdom, or Wisdom is the best one. Now there are also some swords that cause you to have more HP, such as the Pigman Sword. As you can see, the Pigman Sword has an ability that gives you defense that helps quite a bit. Another example of a weapon that gives you defense is the Goldor Wither Sword, whatever its name is. I think it's Astraea? Yeah, Astraea. But not too many swords that give defense, well, because swords really aren't a defense thing. And it's not really meta to use a sword that gives you defense because it's a better use of your sword to have it do damage. But then there are pets, and pets that gives EHP is totally meta. Especially on floors 5 and 6 and 7, because you need EHP things, especially since Fly is gone. Very sad, but you're gonna need something that gives you EHP. Now I currently have a blue whale, which is the first of the three that we're gonna talk about. So it gives you just health right off the bat, and it also gives you defense per health, and it also gives you more max health. So if I were to put on storm armor and look at my EHP, you can see that it's 13,000. Although when I put on my blue whale, my EHP is now 24,000, so nearly doubled. Now, the second pet that does this kind of thing is the Baby Yeti. I currently do not have one, but the epic form is all that you will need. As you can see here, Ice Shields lets you gain 100% of your strength as defense, which is great for berserkers and archers because they use strength. Now, this can get really epic with something like, really good with something like Flower of Truth, because that's like a plus 2,000 defense right there. It can really buff you to like stuff like 1 million EHP. Baby Yeti is quite overpowered. And then the final pet that I'm going to talk about that is not expensive as either of those two is the turtle, because it's much less expensive and it's still, you know, pretty good. So a level 1 epic turtle is 1 million and the legendary version is 7 million, whereas both of those, the blue whale and the Yeti, are both like 30 million coins plus, so this is like the cheaper alternative. The legendary thing is pretty good because you don't have to get a dwarf turtle helmet, you can get something else instead. But turtle gives health and defense, and more health and more defense. It's definitely meant to be an EHP pet, although it's not a very good one because the two pets that kind of were not totally meant to be EHP pets or EHP pets. Although blue whale is meant to be an EHP pet. So yeah, there are your 3 pet choices. I would highly, if you were like struggling in floor 5, 6, or 7, get one of those depending on what your class is. Blue Whale for Mage and anything Mage-like, and Yeti for anything Berserker and Berserker-like. The final thing you could do is reforge your talismans to shiny, but that is not recommended because all of your damage is gone and that is just not Pog. So I wouldn't do it, but if you really need it, then you could do it. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. If you liked what you saw, then consider subscribing and or hitting that like button. I'm beginning to stream on Twitch, so if you want to, go ahead and check out my Twitch down in the description. I stream Skyblock and also this game called Monumenta. You might have heard me talk about it before. Great game, would try it out. Anyway, with that out of the way, I have nothing more to say. See ya!